He didn't have a car, never asked for one, said it made him appreciate the walk, said it gave him time to think, to breathe, to dream. His name was Elijah Ward. 17 years old, quiet voice, big hands, and a heart that moved slow like. It was still learning how heavy this world could be. He was the kind of kid who held the door open, even if you were still halfway across the parking lot. The kind who said yes sir to men who didn't deserve it, and thank you to women who never looked him in the eye. You're watching Injustice Browin. My name is Mark Joie. If this story already hit something deep in you, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and stay close, because stories like this, they ain't fiction, they're memory. Elijah was raised by his mother, Angela Ward, a woman who taught him to things before he could tie his shoes, how to be kind and how to be careful. Their home wasn't fancy. A small rental tucked between a church and a barber shop, with a porch swing that creaked louder than the wind. But it was clean and safe and full of rules, some spoken, some just understood. Rule number 1, don't walk with your hoodie up, not even when it rains. Rule number 2, if a cop stops you, keep your hands visible, speak slow, smile if you can. Rule number 3, never ever go inside a store if there's a crowd or a fight or something that feels off. Walk away. Even if you did nothing wrong, walk away. And Elijah kept those rules like scripture. After school, he'd stay late for basketball practice, then take the long way home. Not because it was safer, it was just quieter, past old wooden houses with broken porches, under streetlights that flickered more than they worked. He liked that silence. He said it helped him forget how small the town made him feel. He said it helped him remember that his life could stretch past the county line, but not on that night. That Thursday, it was just past 6 p.m., still light out. Elijah had his backpack slung over one shoulder and a water bottle in hand. He wasn't rushing, just walking. His earbuds were dead, so all he heard was his own footsteps and the occasional car humming by. He walked past McClary's Hardware, a dusty, narrow little place run by a man named Gary McClary. Been there since Elijah was a kid. Gary never spoke to him, not once, never even nodded. But that night, Elijah heard something strange, a crash, then a loud voice yelling something like, "Stop, you, stop right there." Elijah froze. For half a second, he thought maybe it was someone else, maybe a fight in the parking lot. But when he turned to look, the door to the store flew open. Gary McClary was standing there, face red, holding some kind of stick or pole in his hand. He was pointing, not behind Elijah, not around him, but directly at him. "You think I didn't see you?" he screamed. "You think I'm stupid?" Elijah stood still, confused. He raised his hand slightly, not even sure why. "I didn't." He tried to speak, but that was all he got out. A black SUV pulled up, then another. Sheriff's deputies, fast. One of them was already unbuckling his holster. Gary shouted again, louder this time. "He's the one. He took it. I saw him run out of here. No item was named. No theft was described. No camera footage. No alarm. Just a white man pointing and a black boy standing nearby. Get on the ground." The deputy barked. Elijah hesitated. Just long enough to look confused. Just long enough to say, "Sir, I didn't do anything." The officer rushed forward, slammed him to the ground, elbow in his back, one knee pressed into his side. Cold metal tightened around both wrists. His backpack slid off his shoulder and hit the concrete. The water bottle rolled into the street. A small group gathered. Phones came out, but nobody stepped forward. Another deputy patted Elijah down. Found nothing. No tools. No stolen goods. Not even a receipt. Just an old library card, a couple of folded worksheets, and a pair of gym socks. Elijah tried again. "Can you call my mom? I swear, I just got out of practice." They didn't listen. They didn't ask. They stood him up rough, stuffed him in the back of the cruiser, slammed the door hard. MC Clary stood on the curb, arms folded, smug. He didn't look scared anymore, just satisfied. No one told Elijah what he was being charged with. No one read him his rights. They just took him, a 17-year-old black boy walking home, taken, cuffed, and humiliated because someone pointed. That was all it took. At 6:17 p.m., Angela Ward's phone buzzed, a known number. She almost didn't answer, but when she did, everything in her chest collapsed, because on the other end of that line, a cold voice told her, We've got your son in custody. You need to come down to the station." And just like that, the quiet life she built brick by careful brick began to crack. What they didn't know was who she used to be and what she was about to do. Angela Ward hadn't stepped foot in a courtroom in almost 9 years. Not since the day she buried her husband. That day, she left her law license folded in the back of a drawer beneath birth certificates and faded baby photos. She walked out of her firm, straight-backed, tearless, and never looked back. She didn't even pack her office. Didn't want the plaques or the files or the little gold nameplate that used to mean something. She just walked away. Some folks in town didn't even know she used to be somebody. They knew her as the woman who shelved books at the county library, who walked home alone with a thermos of coffee, hair tied up, headphones on, quiet, invisible, almost. But Angela Ward had once stood before federal judges in D.C., chin high, voice steady, and made men 3 times her size tremble. Back then, they called her the steel spine and silk heels, but when grief took her husband, it took that steel. With it after that, she poured everything into Elijah, made the house gentle, made their life small, safe. She didn't argue with the way things were. She didn't correct the cashier who followed her in stores. She didn't raise her voice when the school counselor called Elijah well-spoken. Like it was a surprise, she let it all slide, because all that mattered was keeping her boy intact. But the second she saw that footage her son, in cuffs, on the 6 o'clock news, something inside her shattered like glass under boot heels. She was standing in the kitchen, hadn't even turned on the stove yet. Elijah's favorite lasagna was still frozen on the counter. She hadn't expected to see his face until 7:30. The reporter was already talking when she looked up. Suspect taken into custody earlier this evening, following accusations from a local store owner. The teen, identified as Elijah Ward, is a seniorette, and that was all she heard. The rest blurred. There he was, on screen. Her baby, on the ground, a knee in his back, his face pressed against the concrete. No sound, just that image. Her hand went numb. The phone slid out of her fingers and hit the floor. It was like the air got sucked out of the house, like someone had reached through the screen and stolen her breath. And right then, something else came alive. Not panic, not fear. Fire. The kind that starts slow in the chest, the kind that spreads to the arms, the hands, the voice, the kind she thought she buried with her husband. She went to the closet, opened that old drawer, the one she hadn't touched in nearly a decade, moved aside the baby pictures, the dried up ink pens, found the folder, still there, still hers. Bar, number still valid. Law degree still hers. She stared at it for a long time, hands trembling. Then she picked up her phone, called a woman she hadn't spoken to in 7 years, a defense attorney she used to battle in court. "I need you to find out who filed the charges," Angela said, "and I need the police report now." The woman on the other end didn't ask questions, just said, "On it." Angela grabbed her keys, tied her hair back, and walked out the door like the woman she used to be. Not the librarian, not the quiet widow, but the storm they didn't see coming. At the station, they made her wait. Didn't even let her see Elijah at first. Policy, they said. Procedure, just sit tight. Ma'am, that word, that smug little speed bump they toss in your face to slow you down, like manners could muffle injustice. She sat there, back straight, legs crossed, eyes locked on the door to the holding room. She didn't blink, she didn't flinch, she just watched. Finally, after what felt like hours, they brought him out. Elijah, still cuffed, lips swollen, shirt torn. He didn't speak when he saw her. He didn't cry, but the look in his eyes, shame, like he thought he'd done something wrong, like he believed what they were calling him. And that broke her more than anything else. She stood up, walked to him slowly, and put both hands on his face. "Look at me," she said. He did. "This is not your fault." His chin quivered. His eyes fell. But she kept her hands on him, kept him upright. She turned to the deputy. "I want him released." "You'll have to wait until morning," he said. "We're processing." She cut him off. "You're processing a child with no weapon, no stolen goods, no evidence, and no lawyer present. That's not due process. That's an ambush." He raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, unless you're his legal representation, I am." She pulled the folder from her purse and dropped it on the counter, bar number on top. The weight of her credentials slammed louder than any gavel. The deputy hesitated. "You, still active?" "I am now." And just like that, the temperature changed. Angela didn't raise her voice, didn't threaten. She didn't have to. Her presence said everything. This wasn't a mother begging for mercy. This was a woman who knew how the system worked, who'd once built it piece by piece, and now she was ready to use it like a weapon. Back home that night, Elijah sat on the couch, head low. Angela watched him, and in her mind, she went back to the courtroom in Montgomery where she won her first case. To the man who told her she'd never make partner. To the judge who interrupted her mid-sentence just to hear himself speak. She remembered all of it, and she remembered why she walked away. But now, she remembered why she ever started. They thought they were cuffing a boy. They had no idea they just woke the woman who taught him how to survive. She stayed up the rest of the night, reading, researching, digging out by dawn. She already had a plan, because this wasn't just about Elijah anymore. This was about a system that got too comfortable calling their prejudice policy. And this time, they picked the wrong mother. The thing about small towns is they don't forget. Not really. They just bury what makes them uncomfortable. They paint over it, lock it in storage, pass it down and whisper so soft, it sounds like wind. But that doesn't mean it's gone. Angela Ward knew how to dig. She'd done it before, as a lawyer, as a woman, and as a black mother in a town that still measured worth by silence. And now, she had a reason to dig again, not just for her son, but for every child who ever sat in a holding cell for daring to exist in the wrong skin. She started with the basics: police reports, complaint filings, booking logs, the things they assumed no one would ever ask for. And sure enough, the paper trail wasn't even subtle dot in the last 6 years. McClary's hardware had reported 27 so-called suspicious individuals. 25 were black, all male, half under the age of 18. Only 2 arrests led to formal charges. The rest, tossed, dismissed, quietly erased. But the mugshot stayed. Angela kept going, down to the courthouse basement, where files go to be forgotten, where the air smells like dust and something older than time. She flipped through yellowed sheets, shaky signatures, and names she hadn't heard since high school. Boys who'd vanished from class one day, never came back, told they moved, or got in trouble, or just didn't fit in. One file stopped her cold. A 15-year-old boy, arrested in 1993 for disturbing the peace. No weapon, no witnesses, just a line that read, "Refused to leave store when asked." That store, McClary's Hardware, the boy's name, Marcus Deshaun Cole. She remembered him. He sat to rows behind her in geometry, always tapping his pencil. Smart kid, fast runner, gone by sophomore year. No one ever said why. Angela shut the folder. Her hands were shaking. She called an old contact in the public defender's office, a woman named Joan who still owed her favors from back in the day. "Joan, I need sealed records. Juvenile cases, black minors arrested between 1985 and 2000. Just in this county." There was a long pause. "You sure you want to see that, Angela?" "I'm sure." The next day, a brown envelope showed up at Angela's front door. No return address. Inside 19 cases, all boys, ages 12 to 17. Some held overnight, others for weeks, one for almost a year. No trials, no convictions, just long stays and silence. And one name kept coming up. Sheriff Ray Holcomb, the same sheriff still sitting in office today, still shaking hands at ribbon cuttings, still sitting on the church board like his soul was made of scripture. Angela remembered him too. He'd been there when her husband died, shook her hand at the funeral, called her a fine example of a strong black woman, said it like a compliment, said it like he had any idea what strength meant. But the files told a different story. Sheriff Holcomb had personally signed off on over a dozen detentions of black boys, without probable cause, without legal counsel. One case even had a handwritten note in the margin, "Just hold him till it blows over." Angela didn't cry. Not then. She just stared at that line until the ink felt like it was burned into her eyes. She knew then. Elijah wasn't just targeted. He was inheriting something. This wasn't an isolated mistake. This was tradition, a town with 2 faces, one that smiled at black families on Sunday, and one that locked their children up on Monday. Angela drove down to the church where Holcomb sat on the front pew every week. She parked outside, sat in the car for a while, watching the door. She thought about going in, calling him out. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she called Elijah's school, asked for his attendance records, asked for his teachers' names, asked for every email ever sent about his behavior. She built a wall of truth, every brick something they couldn't deny, because she knew how this would play out in court. They'd call Elijah agitated. They'd say he fit the description. They'd twist the narrative until he was no longer a boy, but a threat. That's the oldest trick. Make him older in their eyes. Bigger, louder, scarier. Angela wouldn't let that happen. She drove across town to the Cole family house. Same mailbox, same screen door. Marcus's mother still lived there. Angela knocked once. The door opened slow. Mrs. Cole looked older than her years. Tired, like she'd been waiting for this knock since 1993. Angela Ward, she said softly. Took you long enough. They sat in the kitchen. The women who knew what it meant to hold your grief in your teeth and smile anyway. Angela asked, what happened to Marcus? Mrs. Cole didn't blink. They took him, locked him up, said he was stealing candy. Kept him for 3 weeks. By the time I got him back, he wasn't my boy anymore. Angela nodded. Her throat tightened. They tried to break him, Mrs. Cole whispered. They didn't succeed. But they left cracks, you understand. Angela did. Before she left, Mrs. Cole pressed something into her hand, a faded photograph. Marcus in a school jersey, grinning, eyes full of fire. You tell your son, she said, this town doesn't get to define him. Angela took that picture, put it in her briefcase, alongside Elijah's school essays, his transcripts, and a statement he'd written. By hand. She was building the case, but not just for the court. She was building it for the town, for his memory. For the truth that was always there, just waiting for someone to say it out loud. Because once you speak it, they can't pretend it didn't exist. And once you show the pattern, they can't call it a coincidence. They can deny anger, deny emotion, but they can't deny paper. Angela didn't just want acquittal anymore. She wanted reckoning. Because this wasn't about one black boy falsely accused. This was about every boy who never made it home. And now, she was going to make sure the whole world heard their names. The first thing Angela noticed was the jury, 12 faces. None of them looked like Elijah. Not one. 10 white, 2 black, both over 60, retired, the kind of folks who waved politely at the pastor, then crossed the street when they saw a group of black kids laughing too loud on the corner. Angela sat beside Elijah at the defense table. He wore a borrowed navy blue suit that didn't quite fit, and a tie he hadn't known how to tie until that morning. He sat still, silent, shoulders stiff, hands in his lap. She placed her palm over his. He didn't look at her, but he didn't pull away. The judge called the room to order. Angela already knew how this was going to go. The prosecutor stood up with a voice that had tried this speech before. He called Elijah a suspect, a young man who fit the description, said there'd been a history of disturbances in that part of town, claimed that Mr. McClary was understandably frightened when he saw Elijah walking past. He used words like threatening presence, uncooperative, agitated. He talked like Elijah was a storm cloud that wandered into town, dark and unwanted. And all the while, Elijah sat there. No outbursts, no rolled eyes, just stillness. Then they brought Gary McClary to the stand. Angela watched the man avoid her gaze. He lied so easily, it was like breathing. Said he saw Elijah inside the store, pacing. Said he thought he saw something. Slipped into a backpack. Said he'd asked Elijah to stop, but Elijah ran. Angela stood up slowly when it was her turn to cross-examine. She didn't raise her voice, didn't posture. She walked to the stand, looked McClary dead in the eye. You stated you saw Elijah inside the store. What time was that? He hesitated. Little before 6. She nodded. And your store camera, it would have caught that. Yes. He shifted. Camera's been down for a few weeks. Still waiting on parts. Angela raised an eyebrow. So, no video footage? He shrugged. Didn't need it. I saw what I saw. She stepped closer. Just a little. And when you say he ran, where exactly was he running to? To the street. Away. Angela picked up a printout from her file, walked it to the projector, clicked it on. The whole courtroom saw the image. A traffic camera from the opposite corner. 6:02 p.m. Elijah, walking, not running, not inside, walking past the store, alone, looking at his phone. Angela turned back to McClary. That your store in the background? He swallowed. Yeah. She paused. And that the young man you say was inside, running away? Silence. Angela stepped forward, answered the question. Mr. McClary, his voice cracked. I might have been mistaken. Angela let that hang in the air. Then she turned to the judge. No further questions. The police were next. They twisted their statements, just enough to stay clean. Claimed Elijah resisted. Claimed he matched a call from dispatch. Claimed protocol was followed. Angela waited until the lead deputy was seated. Then she asked, "Can you tell the court what evidence you recovered from Elijah's person?" He looked at his notes. Nothing physical was recovered. Angela walked over to her table, picked up Elijah's backpack, held it open. "Would you like to see what was actually inside?" The deputy blinked. Angela pulled out each item one by one. A composition notebook, a pair of Nike gym shoes, a broken pencil, one squished granola bar, and finally his basketball jersey. She held it up. Number 11, still damp with sweat from practice. "Did you recover anything that matched the alleged stolen merchandise?" "No, ma'am." She turned to the jury. "Did you test his hands for prints, fibers, DNA?" "No." "You didn't even ask for a statement, did you?" "No." Angela stared at him. "Because in your eyes, he didn't need one." Silence. She stepped back, let the weight of it all fall quiet. The prosecutor tried to recover, called the character witnesses, both white. One who said he often felt unsafe walking near the high school. Another who said Elijah once stared at him along in a grocery store. Angela didn't even rise to object. She let them speak because she knew something they didn't. She knew the moment was coming. She called her own witnesses. Elijah's coach, who said he never missed practice. His English teacher, who read aloud part of an essay Elijah wrote about wanting to make his mother proud. Mrs. Cole, who testified about her son Marcus, how he was taken, how he was never the same. The courtroom shifted. Uncomfortable. Suddenly. This wasn't about a single accusation. It was about the pattern. Angela stood to make her final statement. She didn't look at the judge or the prosecutor. She looked directly at the jury. "Some of you will say this isn't about race. That it's just about misunderstanding. That maybe this boy was in the wrong place at the wrong time." She paused, took a step forward. "But what you call misunderstanding, my son has lived with his whole life." She held up the photograph of Marcus Cole. "This town took boys like him and buried their names in paperwork. They were called suspects before they even knew how to spell the word. Their stories never made it past the courtroom doors. I won't let that happen again." Another step. "You don't have to like him. You don't have to understand his music, his walk, his hoodie, or his silence. But you do have to see him." Her voice cracked now, but she didn't stop. "He is not a threat. He is not a statistic. He is my son, and he deserves to walk down the street without fear of being erased." Silence fell like a stone. The jury filed out. Angela sat. She looked at Elijah. He was watching her now. And for the first time in weeks, he wasn't ashamed. He was proud. The verdict hadn't been read yet, but something had already changed. The truth was in the open now, and the town couldn't unhear it. The courtroom was packed when the verdict came in. You could hear the air tighten. Every cough, every shoe scrape on the talent all got swallowed by the weight of that moment. Angela sat still, fingers laced, her eyes on the floor, Elijah beside her, breathing slow, like each breath might be his last before the world decided what name he'd carry from that day forward, suspect or son, criminal or child. The foreman stood, cleared his throat. "Read the words." "Not guilty." The room didn't cheer. No one clapped. But the sound of Angela exhaling was louder than thunder. Elijah didn't react at first. He blinked like he hadn't heard it right, like his mind was still braced for the blow, still expecting the cuffs, still hearing the steel door slamming shut in his dreams. But then Angela turned to him. She put her hand on the back of his neck, pulled his forehead to hers, and whispered, "You're free, baby." And finally, Elijah breathed, not the tight, shallow kind of breath he lived on since their rest. A real breath, like air had been returned to his lungs. When they walked out of that courtroom, the sky looked different. Even the pavement felt softer under their feet, but not everyone welcomed them. Some eyes still narrowed, some arms stayed crossed, some mouths muttered about lucky breaks and woke juries. Angela didn't flinch. She wasn't here to change every mind. She was here to make sure the truth had a seat at the table, and it did. Because something shifted in that trial. The quiet people, the ones who never spoke up, never asked questions, never rocked the boat started whispering. A little louder, a teacher who once ignored the way security followed black students in the halls. She wrote a letter to the paper. The pastor who always preached forgiveness but never named injustice. He gave a sermon that Sunday about courage and said Elijah's name out loud, and the sheriff, well, he smiled through gritted teeth and said, justice was served like he meant it, but Angela saw his eyes. He knew. His time was ticking. Angela didn't stop after the verdict. She filed petitions, demanded body cams be made public record, held community meetings in the library after hours, started mentoring young students who didn't trust anyone with a badge or a bench, and Elijah, he walked home again, not because he had to, because he chose to dot same route, same cracked sidewalks, same corner where it all went wrong, only this time. Heads turned dot not in fear dot in recognition. That's the boy. That's the one they tried to disappear. Some nodded. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Some just watched him pass with a weight in their chest they couldn't quite name. Elijah walked, taller now, not arrogant, not bitter dot just grounded, like his steps were made of something heavier than doubt. People tried to define him by the worst things said about him, but he'd become more than that dot, a symbol, a scar that spoke, a reminder that the system could bend if enough pressure was applied. He went back to school, graduated on time, gave a speech at his senior ceremony, said only 12 words, but the whole crowd stood when he finished. I'm still here. I'm still standing, and I'm still walking home. That line stuck out. Someone made t-shirts. Kids wore them in the halls. Still walking home. It became something bigger than Elijah. Bigger than the town dot. It became a statement, a promise, that no matter how hard they try to stop you, you keep walking, because they can't take your dignity. They can't steal your name. They can't write your ending if you've already taken the pen. Angela watched him that summer, sitting on the porch, shoes untied, music low, eyes on the sky. She remembered the night she cried alone in the dark, praying the world wouldn't break him. And now here he was whole healed. Not fully. Some scars you carry forever, but strong. The kind of strong that doesn't shout, that doesn't need to. One afternoon, Elijah asked her, you think they'll remember? Angela didn't look up from her book, just smiled. They already do. And she was right, because when the town tells its story now, it includes his name, not just as the boy accused, but as the boy who changed everything. And still, to this day, Elijah walks home, head high, step steady, not afraid, not invisible. And now, the town watches differently, because you can only ignore the truth so long before it forces your eyes open. And when that happens, even the most silent streets learn how to speak.